officially welcome. Oh, hang on, this is the last one. Oh. We haven't got the Japanese kana again. And live streamed on the Shire's website. Under clause 6.16 of the Shire's Meeting Procedure Local Law 2020, I do not give permission for any other person to record the proceedings of this meeting. By being present at this meeting, members of the public consent to the possibility that their image and voice may be live streamed to the public. Recordings are also made available on the Shire's website following the meeting. Please note that any items discussed behind closed doors will not be live streamed. However, once the meeting is open again to the public, live streaming will recommence. I'll remind those in the public gallery that no recording devices are permitted to be used in the chambers to record the proceedings of the meeting without the written permission of the presiding members. Councillors, please remember to turn your microphone on prior to speaking. Item 2, attendance and apologies. Councillor Mahmood's been granted approval to attend electronically, and hopefully that will sort itself out very shortly. It's via Microsoft Teams in accordance with Admin Regulation 14CA and 14C5. Item 3, announcements by President. There is none. Item 4, declarations of interest. Councillor Cooper has a financial interest in item 9.2.1, Local Planning Scheme number 7, implementation of precinct structure plans. Councillor Cooper owns a property in the area that the item relates to. Item 9.2.2, Councillor Cooper has a financial interest due to the Chinatown or Broome precinct structure plan. And again, he owns a property in the area that item relates to. Councillor Taylor, actually I might do 9.2.1, amendment number 1 to the local planning scheme, and 9.2.2 Chinatown Old Broome precinct structure plan. Councillor Taylor is a director of a company that owns property in Chinatown in respect to those two items. Councillor Smith, amendment number 1, local planning strategy scheme, item 9.2.2 Chinatown Old Broome precinct structure plan, and 9.2.3 Cable Beach precinct structure plan. Councillor Smith is a previous employee of Namba Buru Yaru NBY. NBY own land throughout the areas of both Cable Beach and Chinatown Old Broome. Councillor Virgo has a financial interest in 9.3.1, Shinju Matsuri acquittal 2023 and 2024, and future request for funding. Councillor Virgo is the manager of the Broome Visitor Centre and has a partnership with Shinju Matsuri. So it's that one. Councillor Matsumoto, 9.2.1 and 9.2.2, amendment to local planning scheme number 7, and the Chinatown Old Broome precinct structure plan. Councillor Matsumoto owns a property in Chinatown Old Broome. Mr. Sam Mastrolembo, as CEO, has a financial interest in 9.2.1 and 9.2.2, the local planning scheme number 7 and the Chinatown Old Broome precinct structure plan. Mr. Mastrolembo owns property in Chinatown or Broome. Miss Kirstine Wood, 9.2.1 and 9.2.2, amendment number 1 to local planning scheme number 7 and the Chinatown Old Broome precinct structure plan. Kirsten Wood owns property in Chinatown Old Broome. Is there any further declarations of interest?
Chair, sorry, I just wanted to correct. There's been some clarifications from Walga regarding my conflict of interest, and it's not because I'm a previous employee, but because I'm a current contractor to NBY. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Yep. If there's no other declarations, public question time, item 5. There are guidelines that need to be adhered to in our councillor meetings. During public question time, people speaking are not to personalise any questions about elected members or staff or use any possible defamatory remarks. In accordance with clause 6.17 of our Meeting Procedures Local Law 2020, a person addressing the council shall extend due courtesy and respect to the council and the processes under which it operates, and shall comply with any direction by myself as the presiding member. A person present at or observing a meeting shall not create a disturbance at the meeting by interrupting or interfering with the proceedings, whether by expressing approval or dissent, by conversing or by any other means. Minimum 15 minutes will be allocated for public question time. Each member of the public is entitled to ask up to 2 questions before other members of the public will be invited to ask their questions. A reminder that public question time is an opportunity to ask questions and not to make statements. Can I remind the public that public questions are to be submitted no later than 12 noon on the day of the council meeting. If you have several questions you wish to submit, please provide these in advance of the deadline to give officers sufficient time to respond. I think first one is Leslie Westlake submitted a public question prior to the meeting. Leslie's here. Yeah, would you like to come forward to the podium and ask your question, please?
Will the Shire review the minutes of motion 2 of lodgement 60 of the Residents and Ratepayers meeting held in February 2025 so that the response provided in the minutes of this meeting tonight, March 27, 2025, in listed agenda item 9.1.1 reflect the questions asked to be addressed in motion 2, thus ensuring the authenticity of the actual motion passed at the previous meeting?
I'll defer that question to James. Thanks.
Thanks through the Chair, and thanks for the question, Leslie. The elector motion received prior to the annual elector meeting held on the 6th of February 2025 contained a preamble or statement which was not included in the motion that was subsequently moved during that meeting. The motion, as written, was displayed to electors prior to being voted on and was moved, seconded and passed by the electors present. The minutes of the annual electors meeting, as published and circulated, were also unanimously confirmed as being a true and accurate record of the meeting at the 27th of February Ordinary Council meeting. An item is listed on the agenda tonight to deal with the motions passed at the annual electors meeting. Sorry, that's listed twice. To consider the elector motions moved at the annual electors meeting, officers have provided a recommendation in response to the motion, and elected members present tonight could propose an alternate motion in response to the question.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. Any other questions from members of the public present? If not, I'll declare public question time closed. Item 6, applications for leave of absence. I have 2 applications, one from Councillor Mail, be granted a leave of absence from councillor duties inclusive of the 15th of April 2025 through to the 27th of April 2025. Do I have Councillor Matsumoto, Councillor Smith first, approving and seconding? Any dissent? Carried unanimously. Further recommendation that Council grant Councillor Virgo a leave of absence from councillor duties inclusive of 12th of April 2025 through to the 26th of April.
Apologies, sorry, sorry, Mr. Chairman. I believe Councillor Mamid might have just dialed in. I just need to confirm that.
Yeah, confirming I'm here and I'm all by myself.
Thanks, Councillor Mahmoud. I'll just ask the question. Councillor Marmon, as per the admin regulation 14 CA5, can you please confirm that you can maintain confidentiality during the meeting, including during any closed part of the meeting?
Yes, I can confirm that.
Thank you. Okay. We're on item 6, applications for leave of absence, and we've just got one. Councillor Virgo be granted a leave of absence from councillor duties inclusive of 12th of April 2025 through the 26th of April 2025. Do I have a mover? Councillor Taylor. Seconder, Councillor Matsumoto. Any dissent? If not, carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7, confirmation of minutes. First recommendation, the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on 27 February 2025 as published and circulated be confirmed as a true and accurate record of that meeting. Do I have a mover of that? Councillor Matsumoto, and seconded by Councillor Virgo. Any dissent on that one? If not, that's carried. Am I going too fast? No. Okay. Further recommendation that the minutes of the annual electors meet. Oh, sorry. Oh, hang on. Sorry.
Yeah, through the chair, apologies. No, you're not going too fast. I think there's a typo there in that next recommendation. It should be that the minutes of the special council meeting held 11th of March, okay, not the annual electors meeting. Apologies.
Okay, so I'll rephrase that. So the minutes of the special council meeting held on 11 March 2025, as published and circulated, be confirmed as a true and accurate record of that meeting. Did I have a mover and a seconder? No. Not Councillor Cooper, Councillor Virgo. Any dissent? If not, carried. Thank you. Item 8, presentations, petitions and deputations. There are none. Item 9, reports from officers.
Chair, could I foreshadow at this point that when we get to item 9.4.1 regarding the annual electors meeting, that I have an alternative motion regarding election motion number 7?
When we get to 9.4.1?
Yep.
Thanks, yep. So
just foreshadowing that.
Okay, yeah, we're on 9.1.1 at the moment though. Thanks. Yeah. Temporary closure of Cable Beach vehicle access ramp and adjustments to Ganthian Point dog exercise area, page 7. I have a mover of the report recommendation. Do I have a seconder for the report?
Can I foreshadow? I've got an amendment.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for the report recommendation? Councillor Cooper, okay. Is there any dissent to that report recommendation?
Yes, me.
So you're, okay.
That's why I have an amendment to number 4.
All right, so Councillor Mail, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, without understanding what Councillor Lewis's amended motion is, I'm moving the officer's recommendation as it states in the officer's report. Due to the closure of Cable Beach North for a minimum of 12 months as we undertake the redevelopment, it is a fair and reasonable compromise that we have gone to the Port Authority to seek extension of the Ganthian Point car access area for another 400 odd kilometres down, and that is purely to accommodate the, sorry, what did I say? Kilometres. And I meant to know numbers.
400 kilometres.
It's been a long day. Metres, thank you. Now I've lost my train of thought. So that's just to accommodate those users that obviously will be impacted by their usual activity north, and we have anticipated that that is just during the closure and not a long-term solution. And also as part of our animal management plan review, it is also anticipated that dogs will be on leash in that area to minimise any issues with dogs off lead, small cars, because we know it's going to be quite busy in that next tourist season. So I support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Shire is well aware that I've communicated a fair bit recently about the closure of the ramp and clarified that the beach north of the rocks will still be able to be used and by vehicles and by beachgoers throughout the period that it's closed. I'm how do I put it? Last year, 100,000 vehicles used that ramp, and I'm keen to see the shortest amount of time that it is closed, albeit that we need to protect turtles in turtle season. But I'm keen to see, because Cable Beach is voted the #3 beach in the world, because it's so popular and so iconic with tourists and locals, I'm keen to see that the beach is closed, so that the ramp is closed for the shortest amount of time possible, and that's why I'm supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis.
My amendment is only to point 4 to try and restrict the time of the extension at Ganthian Point to the tourist season. So that my recommendation basically says that the first closure should start when the project starts, which may not be in April. If there's a delay to stage 1, it might be later. But whenever it starts, that's when the extension should be allowed. And that should go through till October the 31st. After that, there's not far less cars on the beach. The tourists have gone. There's not that many people there. And I think it can stay a reduced area until April the 15th, which is about the time when the tourists start coming back, and then continue until the end of the project. So I'm just trying to protect the beach. There's already too many cars driving past the sign as it is. When you extend it, there'll be people driving beyond the extension. There's an issue for nesting shorebirds and feeding shorebirds, probably more in the wet season than in the dry season, but the nesting ones are in the dry season on the high tide line. There's an additional issue for the management in the conservation park of people driving their vehicles high up at the highest tides. They drive into the vegetation. Don't particularly want that area where vegetation's being destroyed to be extended, extended more than it needs to be. So my amendment to the motion is only to try and reduce the time of the extension to the time when there are peak numbers of vehicles on that beach.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Do I have anyone wishing to speak for the motion? The report recommendation? Councillor Virgo? Oh, sorry, Councillor, turn yours off.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I should have checked that before, but I didn't. Anyway, I support the officer's recommendation regarding the temporary closure. This is a significant and transformative project for Broome. And while temporary disruptions are never ideal, I believe the long-term benefits to our community, visitors and local economy will be substantial. The planned upgrades will enhance the cultural, environmental and recreational values of Cable Beach, strengthening its role as a worldwide class destination. I appreciate that provisions have been made to extend vehicle access at Ganthian Point during the construction period, adjust and clearly communicate changes to dog exercise areas, and reinstate access and original use zones once construction is complete. These measures show a considered and balanced approach aiming to minimise impacts while facilitating important infrastructure and improvements. We have been through this with 2 other precincts and have learnt from the challenges presented to help support the final precinct development. Also, I know that the Shire will extensively ensure people know that the beach is still open and accessible by foot. I am confident that this clear public communication and coordinated management, we can support our community through this transition and deliver a high quality outcome for Broome.
Is there another speaker against the report recommendation? If not, Councillor Mahmood, are you happy with the report recommendation?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mail, do you wish to sum up?
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Lewis, for giving us an insight as to what your amendment was proposing. However, I do disagree with it on the basis that, like with the turtle closure, we did compromise, and there was a lot of locals that, including myself, that no longer can use the beach during those times, and I do go down to Ganthian, and regardless of the fact that there's no tourists there, it can still be quite busy, and unfortunately without a boat ramp, you still have a lot of cars there with trailers that are parked up and whatnot, so it does get quite busy down there, even in the off season. We are committing to having ranger presence down there to monitor, any issues that might be arising down there, whereas we've been told that previously those ranger services were split between Cable Beach North and Ganthian Point. Now they are just able to focus on Ganthian Point, so I think that will alleviate some of the issues that people might be concerned about. But, unfortunately, people already do drive past the sign. I mean, I'm always down there yelling at people, like, they must think I'm crazy, but it's like trying to educate them that, there is a sign there for a reason. And I do think that it is only temporary, and it's a good compromise for our community, so that's why I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Mail. I'll put that report recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? I'm just asking, unfortunately it doesn't get up because the report recommendation was moved and
Just
seconded.
confirming, there's a live motion that's been moved and seconded. Yep. So if that was lost, then you could propose an amendment.
Yeah. So, and Councillor Marmot, are you for or against the report recommendation?
I'm for the way that it is at the moment. I'm okay with that.
Right, thank you.
The recommendation, yeah.
8-1. Yeah, 8-1. Yeah, the report recommendation is the one that was voted on. So you clarified your amendment, but unfortunately it didn't get into it. It's not supported. Yeah.
Did you ever ask if anybody else supported it?
Yeah, that's what the report. Yeah, we're asking for or against. Yeah. It was. Oh, Mike.
Just a clarification in regards to that process, that there was no question, no one asked, or the chair didn't ask, is there a seconder to Councillor Lewis's motion?
No, the report
I just want to clarify that, whether it was done or not.
No, what happens is the report recommendation was moved and seconded. Councillor Lewis was voting against it because she wanted to move a amendment to that motion. But because the motion's on the table, we have to deal with that motion first, and that was dealt with. There's only the one person spoke against the motion. Yeah. So the amendment wasn't put. Yeah. So yeah.
So, Chair, can I try and clarify as well? Like, Councillor Lewis, if you'd wanted your amendment put forward, you would have had to do so before a mover and a seconder had occurred on the original motion. So, I think the motion had already become live at that point. I think you were a bit late in that call, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. All right, so that's been dealt with. Item 9.1.2, Community Sport and Recreation Facilities Fund, small grants, and that's on page 18. Do I have direction from Council? Moved Councillor Virgo, seconded Councillor Smith. Any dissent on this item? If there's no dissent, I declare that one carried.
President, can I just make a clarification? I'd already submitted my amendments before the meeting. They already had them. Is that not? I told you I was going to make some amendments. I told you they were there.
Through the chair, if I may, the live motion had been moved and seconded. So the officer recommendation was presented. Once it's moved and seconded, it's a live motion. It has to be dealt with. The only way the amendment could be accepted is if the mover accepted it, and that was accepted by the seconder as well. That didn't occur, so the live motion had to be dealt with by council, either be voted up or voted down, and in this case it was voted for. So the opportunity to move the motion was before the recommendation had been moved and seconded by elected members. Once it's been moved and seconded, the only way to move the motion is for that live motion to be lost.
Right, so I just have to interrupt right at the beginning.
Well, sort of, yeah. Yeah. All right, moving on. Item 9.2.1, amendment to number 1 to local planning scheme number 7, and there is an update to the schedule of modifications, which every councillor should have. Councillor Cooper has declared a financial interest in item 9.2.1. Councillor Taylor has declared a financial interest in 9.2.1. Councillor Smith has declared a financial interest in 9.2.1. Councillor Matsumoto has also declared a financial interest, and all 4 have now left the chambers. There is a report recommendation there. Do I have any clarification from councillors?
Clarifications, please. If there are substantial questions about the second item, is it possible to pass the first item when those haven't been addressed? Or, because they're all interrelated, the scheme amendment and the... So I think when we discussed it earlier, we decided we'd have the clarifications about all 3 of these matters before we then voted on the things. Is that not what we said?
Through the chair, the presiding member's call, but yes, I tend to agree. The 3 items are interconnected, if you like. One is a scheme amendment. The following 2 items relate to the actual precinct structure plan, but the scheme amendment is in regards to the structure plan, so it would make sense to be able to ask questions on all 3 through the one process before you deal with the first matter.
All right. So, yep, I'm happy for clarification. Councillor Marmot, just before we do, Councillor Marmot, can you hear okay?
Yep, I'm okay, thank you.
Good, thanks. Councillor Lewis, your questions?
In regards to the Chinatown Old Broome precinct plan, is it correct that on a map in the draft document that was circulated for consultation, there's 2 mistakes on the map? On page 208, that's one of the pages it's on. It doesn't include the places that are on the Shires Municipal Heritage Inventory. It only includes the state heritage sites. And it also shows 2 roads as being public open space. So I question if the consultation has gone out with something as how many heritage sites there are is quite a meaningful matter when we're discussing this precinct. That is the public consultation valid if people had the wrong information?
I'll seek clarification on that one.
Yeah, through the chair, we'll defer to the Manager of Planning and Building.
Yes, through the chair. So there was an issue with part 2 of the local structure plan for Chinatown Old Broome, whereby the figures didn't include the places on our local heritage inventory, but they did include the state registered places. This was a mapping error, which we've omitted to in the report, and there's submitters that did raise it. Notwithstanding that, the heritage was considered in the planning framework changes that we did with the engagement with the community that led to this process, as well as informed the changes that were proposed now through the precinct structure plan.
Next question relates to the Old Broome special character description. There's very little commentary in the precinct plan about what it actually is, the Old Broome special character. I understand that the process was originally going to review that and look and maybe expand on it. So far, the document seems to talk about the streetscape. It doesn't mention also that originally that they were all large blocks. They all had plenty of greenery, they had plenty of breezeways and things like that. I find it... Okay, so my question is, why is there no commentary about this in the precinct plan?
Thank you. So it does mention it in part 2 of the precinct structure plan, but it doesn't go into a great level of detail, but we did consider it through preparing the precinct structure plan. And you can probably see on page 26 and 27 of the agenda, it mentions that. So as a part of preparing the precinct structure plan, we did review the existing planning framework, being predominantly the Old Broome development strategy, where the Old Broome special character area is included. And you will note in there, it doesn't actually define what the character or the discrete character is. So through the review, we did consider and look into what those character elements are. And again, you can see it there on page 26. Sorry, just bear with me 2 seconds. It's page 27. And it mentions it in point, where are we? So neither document clearly defines the specific built form elements or character aspects of the Old Broome that have been retained through the Old Broome Special Character Area. So while this area contains heritage listed and character properties, the defining elements of its character, such as the wide streets, generous verges and mature vegetation, are largely spatial and landscape driven rather than built form related. The precinct structure plan incorporates controls to promote that these features are maintained in the future. It goes on later to describe, and you can see the figures on page 26, where the planning frameworks changes are proposed in the Old Broome Special Character Area, and it lists the reasons for why it's deemed appropriate in that case. Predominantly it's to reflect the surrounding streetscapes and also to reflect the existing planning framework, which does have pockets of those areas upcoded. So we have reviewed it through the preparation process. It has been considered in detail, and we believe what's been proposed is a balanced review and will achieve the outcomes that Council intended to do through the precinct structure plan process.
So you don't believe that it should be specified in more detail?
I believe it's been considered adequately and it's currently addressed and clearly itemised in the agenda item as well.
Right. And what is the life of a structure plan, the precinct structure plan?
So once it's endorsed by the West Australian Planning Commission, it's got a 10-year time frame approval period.
After 10 years, people will come along and change it again?
It can be amended at any point through that period as well. So yeah, but all structure plans now have a 10-year approval time frame. Council can also request that it be extended as well.
Okay. The other thing I noticed was that it looked like, where did I write it? That the report states there'll be between 300 and 1,000 additional homes across the precinct if the changes that you've suggested go ahead. What do you think that will do to the population of the precinct, and do you think that's acceptable?
Yes, it's acceptable. It was one of the objectives that Council wanted to deliver through the precinct structure plan was increase housing and increasing housing stock as well as diversity of housing stock.
So it's likely to be at least 2,000, potentially more than 2,000 extra people.
Those dwelling projections don't always relate to what occurs on the ground, definitely. So if you're zoned R50, it delivers a particular maximum amount of dwellings that can be put on a block. Doesn't always mean that that's what is delivered when you have to consider site constraints and stuff like that. But overall, yeah, predominantly you work out a average household size of 2.7 people, so that would be the likely population increase.
Right. I think those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further questions? If not, any dissent?
Any?
Dissent. Oh, sorry, I thought we had a mover. Oh.
We haven't moved it yet.
No, okay. Do we have a mover for this report recommendation?
Well, are we not going to do the Chinatown one as well?
No, no.
The clarifications?
Oh, you're doing the... Okay, well, do the other clarifications now before we move on.
Actually, I haven't got any, but somebody else might have.
Yeah, sorry, through the chair, I thought the questions, yeah, we agreed that you would run through all questions on any of the three items at the presiding member's approval. So yeah, if councillors have any other questions on the two items that are following, now's the time to do that.
I'll have a clarification for the manager of building and planning. But we obviously had some correspondence from a couple of residents that I believe may have also submitted submissions through this process that were against, obviously, some changes to the Broome, to some of the zoning changes in the Old Broome Special Character Area. In your opinion, can you give a reason why the officers recommended to proceed with the zoning changes despite the the submissions against versus the submissions for? I mean, I understand there wasn't actually that many submissions, full stop, but just in that light, can you give your professional opinion on why that was that opinion was taken?
Yeah, it's probably a similar answer to what I provided to Councillor Lewis, and it is set out on page 26 and 27 of the agenda item. We have itemised how many submissions we got in relation to the concerns that have been raised. There were only a few submissions in support. But in essence, we believe that the planning framework changes proposed through the precinct structure plan have considered the character provisions. We've also, with the submissions, have suggested some improvements, which was highlighted by them with the need to prepare a heritage impact statement. And also, through considering the submissions, have proposed for those properties along Louis Street to be downcoded to R10 because of those state registered places. I think overall there's quite a balanced view there. It's been considered in detail, and I think it's an appropriate framework change.
Okay. Any further questions in relation to these items? Councillor Marmer, do you have any questions?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Thanks. So if there's no further questions in relation to the following items, I'll put the first recommendation. I'll seek a mover and a seconder for the recommendation for 9.2.1. So that's the amendment number 1 to local planning scheme number 7, implementation of precinct structure plans. So do we have a mover? I'm happy to move it. Get it on the table. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Virgo. Any dissent? Councillor Lewis. Okay. I get to move. Report. Well, this has been a long time in making. We're fully aware of the amount of housing shortage that's around Broome. I firmly believe there's been sufficient community consultation in respect to this. And as the director stated, most times, even if someone said you could build so many houses or whatever on the one block, it very rarely happens, especially with the costs incurred for building materials and everything else. I think it will be up to the community or the owners and that as how they want to look at these blocks. I'm fully aware that some of the owners have been lobbying to have extra houses on those blocks already, but it's been out for community consultation. As mentioned also, that we can always amend the planning scheme within the next 10 years to make alterations anyway, so I think this is a good step forward. Councillor Mayo, no, Councillor Virgo, sorry.
Thanks. Oh, it's working now. Wicked. Through the chair, I'm in support of the motion regarding amendment number 1 to the Shire of Broome's local planning scheme number 7. First, I'd like to acknowledge the submissions received during the public consultation process. Community engagement is a vital part of the planning process, and I thank those who took the time to provide feedback. I'm satisfied that the responses outlined in the attachment 1 demonstrate a thoughtful and considerate approach to the matters raised, and after asking many questions, I was able to get the answers and have been actually detailed again today. I support the decision to proceed with the amendment with modifications as detailed in attachment 2. These modifications reflect a balanced approach responding to community input while ensuring we continue to align with the strategic planning objectives of the Shire. Importantly, I agree with the determination that is a standard amendment under Regulation 35(2) of the Planning and Development Regulations. It's consistent with our local planning strategy. It supports the objectives of the relevant zoning, and it does not present any significant environmental, social, economic or governance impacts. This amendment is a practical and necessary update, not complex but certainly important, and will help with our housing stock in Broome. So for that, I'm fully supportive of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Virgo. Councillor Lewis.
I'm against the motion because of my concerns about the old Broome element of the precinct plan, which impacts on the structure plan as well. I think, yes, housing is an issue in Broome, but there is a separate project looking at all those some of those vacant blocks, and I understand some of those are now actively pursuing housing options. So I'm not sure that the urgency in Old Broome is there. compared with the importance of retaining the cultural heritage. Otherwise, Broome just becomes like anywhere else. If we carry on developing what was Broome, we will end up with being anywhereville. I understand from the documents that currently 146 houses are zoned as R10 in Old Broome. If a bigger block is one of the characteristics of the special, special character area, reducing them to 69, which is what the plan is proposing to do, taking away over half the large blocks and zoning them differently so that there can be more housing on there, I don't think is a way of supporting the cultural and heritage elements of that area. Yes, the planning rules allow that if somebody wants to develop next to a heritage listed site, they've got to put in a heritage impact assessment, but still, it's all about space and the sense of space and quietness, etc., which is not necessarily fulfilled by more busy blocks. I also am uncertain about the road system being able to cope, even though they've had an assessment that says it can. Until you move the hospital, there's already enough traffic on some of those roads at school time and hospital time and everything else time to make some of those extremely busy. And having an extra 1,000 households driving a car or two in that area doesn't seem to me to be a good idea. I think the inaccuracies in the mapping reduce the perception about the amount of heritage buildings on that site. But even so, of the people, the not many people who did respond, 10 people were against the rezoning compared with one person who was happy with the rezoning. So we're going once again against what the community actually thinks they want. I'm also worried about street trees during the building process if some of these blocks are being developed. That's one of the other important elements of the special character. And builders, you know, you can have all the rules you like, but it only takes one lazy person to damage a tree so that it has to be removed. So for all those reasons, I'm not saying I suppose I'm voting against it for now. I think some more tweaking can be done, particularly defining that what the characteristics of that Old Broome special character area are, so that any future young planner that the Shire employs has got something very specific that they can look at when a development application comes in, which clearly says more than just wide streets and wide verges, but tries to define more what the character is. So for all those reasons, I'm at this stage voting against.
Thanks, Councillor Lewis. Anyone else? Thank you, Gallery. Is there any other speakers for the recommendation? Councillor Marmot, do you wish to comment?
I won't speak for or against, but I will just state that I don't understand what the Old Broome character is, to be exact. But yeah, I'm happy to move forward.
Thanks, Councillor Marmot. Is there any speakers against? Any further speakers?
I'll just make a comment. I'll speak for the motion as it is. Obviously, we did undertake a significant community consultation with the next items with the structure planning, and there was opportunities for the community to come and, you know, get involved in the changes or, you know, proposed ideas. And I do believe that that did occur, and that was there were people at those workshops contributing to that. I do think that the responses that we had are quite disappointing. Actually, they're very minimal. And if this, you know, if this was a huge issue, you would expect quite a big, you know, rebuttal to the proposed changes. I think that we do have a housing shortage all around the nation, but, you know, particularly in Broome, we're short over 400 plus houses a year. And that's only going to get worse. So, you know, by making these zoning changes, you know, it's not asking somebody tomorrow to redevelop. It's just allowing that into the future. And as you say, things can always change. So I'll support it with the professional recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Male. as already stated, I'll sum up. There's been substantial consultation with the community in various aspects, and I think this is a way forward to help develop parts of town that can sustain future development. So I'll leave it at that. So I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Mahmood?
Yep, in favour.
Okay, thank you.
Happy with the amount of work that's gone behind it.
All right, thank you. And all those against? Councillor Lewis? Okay, that motion's carried 4-1. It's 9.2.1, the first one, yeah. Now we'll move on to 9.2.2, which is the old Broome precinct structure plan. And all the councils are still outside. Sorry, well, yeah, I'll have to stay for this, yeah, outside for that one as well, yeah. Okay, so we've got a report recommendation there. Do we have any direction from council on the report recommendation? Councillor Mail moving it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Virgo. Any dissent? Councillor Lewis. Okay. You in favour, Councillor Mahmood, or against?
Yeah, I'm happy with the way it's set out.
So far, okay. Councillor Mail, do you wish to?
Yeah, no, all I'll say is repeating myself. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's our previous argument, I think, is relating to all three items, so.
Okay. Councillor Virgo?
I'm the same, it's just completely repeating yourself all the way through.
Okay. Councillor Lewis? Yes. Yeah, Chinatown Old Broome Precinct, yeah. Nothing? Oh, so no questions? Oh, so you're not debating this time?
So, well, I've said everything there is to say, basically.
Are you still against?
I could say it all again, but...
All right. Councillor Mahmood, okay. Do you wish to sum up, Councillor Mail? No. I'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour of the report recommendation? Councillor Mahmood?
Yep.
Thank you. All those against? Councillor Lewis. That's carried 4-1 again. Can we invite Councillor Cooper, Taylor and Matsumoto back into the chambers? Is Councillor Cooper coming in? Okay. For Councillor Cooper, Taylor and Matsumoto, 9.2.1, the report recommendation was carried 4-1, so there's no changes to that one. And item 9.2.2, that was carried 4-1 as well. So those two report recommendations went through. Okay. All right. Moving on to item 9.2.3, Cable Beach Precinct Structure Plan. Consideration of submissions and adoption. And Councillor Smith is out of the room. As a report recommendation, do I have direction from council? Anyone wishing to move the report recommendation? Councillor Taylor? Do I have a seconder for that report recommendation? Councillor Cooper? Okay. Do we have any dissent on this one? Councillor Cooper? No dissent on this one? Are you happy with this one, Councillor Mahmood?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I'm happy with it.
If there's no dissent, I'll declare that one carried. Oh, so you are dissenting. Okay. Councillor Taylor, do you wish to speak on this?
Yeah, I think the precinct planning at work, yes. The precinct planning for Cable Beach is the result of almost a decade of public consultation, which has been extensive, and there's been lots of iterations over that period of time. I think to come up with a plan for it which is going to be
really positive for the Broome community. It's providing, in particular, I think, facilities for many of the younger people in towns. Certainly the sand pool up the top there, I think, is going to be a major attraction for young families there to gather and entertain their children there. I think it's going to attract far more people to the Cable Beach area there. The community will benefit from that. As a secondary benefit, I think it's going to cement the Cable Beach area as a major attractor for tourism, and Broome needs every new attraction or improved attraction possible to continue attracting tourism in a very, very competitive domestic and international market there. So I think the work that's been done has been excellent. We've used some of the best designers in Australia there, and I'm confident of an excellent outcome that people will look back on and think that this has just been an absolute masterstroke. So I fully support the recommendation as written.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Cooper, do you wish to speak on this one?
Yes, Mr. President, I'll just be very brief. I think it meets the objectives of the Shire, where it promotes growth and development. It helps promote places of interest, and Cable Beach is definitely a great place of interest to many visitors to our town, and it also adds to the attractiveness of the area, which is definitely enhanced, so I'm supportive of it.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis.
I haven't got much to say. I went to one of the workshops near the beginning. There were very few people there, and the bloke who spoke most was somebody who lived in one of those 3 months at a time lease places who wanted it to become permanent. So there was not a lot of discussion. I'm not sure that it's resolved this thing between residential and tourist development. I heard Alan Griffiths say that it was those provisions that were hampering the growth of the area. I'm not sure, and I asked once and I've forgotten the answer, whether this plan actually addresses that issue or whether we will actually get more tourist development out of it. So I'm not actively against it, but I don't think it's quite got it necessarily right yet. I'm a bit unconvinced.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Any other person, councillor, that wish to speak for the recommendation? If not, Councillor Marmer, do you wish to speak to the motion, or are you happy with it?
No, I'm happy to move on, thanks.
Okay. Councillor Taylor, you wish to speak again? Sum up, sorry.
Yes. I guess just in response to Councillor Lewis's points there, I guess my view has been focused tonight very much on, I guess, the community and what it does for the community. And in terms of the planning side of things, I think, I'm very, very confident that the changes to the planning structure around the precinct planning will actually significantly help new developments to get off the ground, because we really haven't had a new development in the last decade or 15 years there. So we're getting some very tired offerings there. So in terms of changing that planning there, I think it will increase the investors' appetite there. And by increasing the residential component, it will start making that whole precinct a 12-month-a-year activity centre, whereas at the moment it's very much focused around the 4 or 5 months of our tourist season, where the benefit will come through when people are activating that area 12 months of the year.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I'll put that report recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Mahmood, you in favour or?
Yes.
Okay, and one against? No, you can't. Okay, so that's carried 8-1. Sorry, 7-1, because Councillor Smith's out there. Yes, can we invite Councillor Smith back to the chambers? Thanks.
We need to give her a rundown on the three.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes. Welcome back. Item 9.2.1, the implementation of the precinct structure plan was carried 4.1, the report recommendation. Item 9.2.2, again, the report recommendation was carried 4.1, 4 and 1 against the report recommendation. And item 9.2.3, that was the report recommendation carried 7 and 1 against, so, and same recommendation. Okay. All right, moving on. 9.2.4 under place, successful application to the WA Bicycle Network Grants Program. There is a report recommendation there. Do I have any direction from council?
Clarification.
Clarification? Yes?
I'd like, I've already asked this, but I'm asking it again so it's recorded, that item 9 talks about the capital expenditure surplus from the Demarchi Road Black Spot project. I just want to make sure that you will assure me that the outstanding items are, there is still money in the budget for those outstanding items to be finished.
Happy to answer that, Director?
Thank you. Through the chair, yeah, the Demarchi project, there are savings after we keep the funds to finish the verge cleanup and the reseal. These are savings subsequent to that. So the project will be finished, and these savings can be used to advance the next project. Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So do I have a mover? I'm happy to move it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mayle. Any dissent on this one? Are you happy with this one, Councillor Mahmood?
Yep.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Item 9.3.1, prosperity. Shinji Matsuri acquittal 2023 and 2024 and future requests for funding. Councillor Virgo has declared a financial interest and believe has left the chambers. Okay, there's a report recommendation there. Do I have any direction from council? Councillor Taylor moving the report recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Smith, thank you. Do I have any dissent on this item? You happy with this item, Councillor Mahmood?
Yes.
Okay, so if there's no dissent, I declare the motion report recommendation carried. Thank you. Councillor Vogo, back to the chambers, thanks. That item was carried unanimously. Thanks, Councillor Virgo. Okay, moving on to performance. 9.4.1, the annual electors meeting, 6 February 2025. And I believe we're going to deal with these individually. Do I have any direction from council? Well, unless someone wishes.
I think, as I mentioned before, Chair, I'd like to foreshadow once we get to, I think it was number 7, that I'd like to move an alternative motion.
Okay. So they'll be dealt with all separately. So the first one is the elected motion number 1, Leslie Westlake. Do I have direction from council? Move Councillor Taylor. Seconded Councillor Cooper. Do I have any dissent on this motion or any? No dissent? Okay.
I've got an amended motion for number 2.
Okay.
I'm interrupting you in time this time.
Councillor Mahmood, you happy with motion number 1, Leslie Westlake?
Yeah, I am.
Thank you. And I presume you'll jump in if you've got any comments on each of these motions?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. All right. So there's no dissent. That one's carried unanimously. Elected motion number 2, Leslie Westlake again. Do I have direction, Councillor?
I have an amended motion.
Oh, I've just got a... Councillor Virgo's just moved it. You've got an amended motion.
But I already just said it. I interrupted too early.
Yeah, I know. I'll take the amended motion, I suppose. Well, actually, I haven't got a seconder for the Councillor Virgo yet. Okay, so yeah, we'll take Councillor Lewis. You got an amended motion.
Yes.
What's your amended motion? Thanks, Councillor Lewis.
As only 18% of respondents to the 2024 community scorecard felt that the Shire had a good understanding of community needs, and only 16% of respondents thought the Shire listened to the community and respected community views, this motion requests the Chief Executive Officer to provide a quarterly report at council meetings in 25 and 26, detailing measures taken to address community concerns about the Shire's listening, understanding and respecting community needs and views, and the perceived effectiveness of the measures taken. And the reason for my amendment is that this was the intention of the original motion by Leslie Westlake, but the way it was recorded didn't refer it to this particular items in the community scorecard.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Do we have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Smith. Do we have any dissent on that motion? Any speakers against? Okay. Councillor Mayall's going to speak again. Councillor Lewis, you wish to speak to the motion?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Can we just check with Councillor Lewis that we have that motion correctly worded on the screen there, please?
I forwarded it in, so if she's...
Yeah, can we just double check it, please?
I think it's missing this motion requests the Chief Executive Officer. So it's just missing 2 words on line 3. Otherwise it doesn't read properly. Okay. You don't... Oh.
Sorry, I think it's a little unclear. Apologies. I think this is your motion that you're putting up to deal with the matter. So it reads that Council 1 notes the elector motion, and then secondly, it should be what you're asking the CEO to do.
Yes, but it doesn't. We don't need to note the elector motion. Actually, that wasn't there because.
So delete point 1.
Oh, I see why you've requested a council out, because the elector motion wasn't recorded. It doesn't make sense, basically. It doesn't ask for this. So that's all right now, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, so have we got that clarified? Okay, so do you wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Lewis.
Yes. The community score, this element of the community scorecard, it isn't covered in the corporate plan or the strategic plan or anything. This is more about how the Shire works, or the Shire officers work, or even how council works. And it's an important thing that needs addressing if such a low percentage of people felt, or such a high percentage of people thought that the Shire was not listening or responding or respecting. Therefore, we've briefly addressed this already. We said that we were going to talk about it further. We haven't talked about it further, and therefore I think this motion from Leslie was trying to push this along to try and make sure that something actually happened. And so we're asking the Chief Executive Officer to think about things that the staff can do and report back to the council as to what they are.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith, do you wish to speak?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I support the alternate motion put up by Councillor Lewis, particularly with respect to improving transparency of council and our accountability back to the community. I do think there was some very clear signals coming through from the community around the level of support or acknowledgement that they feel the Shire is giving to their concerns, needs, wants and desires, and they're not necessarily feeling heard and listened to. We get plenty of updates within our information bulletins and workshops and all of that sort of thing that the broader community isn't necessarily hearing, and I believe that a lot of this information is already being compiled and therefore shouldn't necessarily be much more of an impost in terms of resourcing. It's something that can assist the community in better understanding what the Shire is doing and how the Shire is tracking against the objectives of the community scorecard that have been identified as lacking by the community.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Mayo.
Thank you, Chair. Look, whilst I completely, appreciate the elector's motion and Councillor Lewis's motion, I'm just a little bit confused about what the motion is actually asking. So it's actually asking the CEO to do a quarterly report to address issues in the scorecard, but it doesn't actually say what specific issues and what it is he's reporting on. Now, I do recall some workshops after the community scorecard came back to us that actually addressed and showed us all of the community feedback, and we had a good discussion about that. And we also acknowledged that community scorecards across the state actually reduced in vote proportionally. And it's no surprise to anyone that there is a lot of pressure out there economically in the community whether it comes to interest rates, whether it comes to insurances, work pressures. There is a lot of pressure out there in the community, and there is a lot of disdain from people because of the general issues that are facing all of us. So I'm just... although I understand that we need to address community scorecard priorities, another point is that the community scorecard asks a lot of questions in there that are outside council's control. So, for example, one of them is housing, and that's one of the worstly rated scores in our community scorecard, and we are fighting day and night with these ministers to address the housing situation. However, we've asked that question and then it reflects in our scorecard, and then there's a perception that it's actually council's responsibility. So although I fully respect what the elector and the councillor is proposing, I'm just unsure as to what this report is going to show, the way that it's written like that, and what it is that it's exactly asking. That's why I'm speaking against it.
Thanks, Councillor Mel. Do we have another speaker against the motion?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Through the chair.
Oh, sorry, hang on. Sorry, another speaker for the motion. If not, do I have a... Councillor Matsumoto?
I just wanted to clarify Councillor Lewis's motion and what is she's asking for in regards to the misinformation that our officers have given us. I just wanted to know what are the reasons for her to bring up that. That's why I supported it.
Oh, hang on, sorry, you can't debate. Yeah, sorry, no, yeah. Yeah, so it's... Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we'll get that sorted out. Yeah. There's another speaker against the motion.
Sorry. I'm confused. No, I'm actually against the motion because I understand the importance of community feedback, but I also understand that we've got a large rate base and a lot more people. So as much as people say that this is a large percentage of what people are saying in the community, I sort of beg to differ because we should be reaching a lot more out to understand that. I think a lot of the questions, exactly as Councillor Mail said, are about advocacy and the importance of how we gather that feedback to then be able to support advocacy out there, as you were saying, with housing and everything else. So I'm against this motion. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other speakers for the motion? Any other speakers against the motion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councillor Cooper.
Just briefly, my understanding of Councillor Lewis's motion is about greater communication, and I agree that in every aspect of business life, personal life and Shire business, that we all should be greater communicators with everything that we do. But in request to my understanding of the alternate motion, the Shire does have a communication strategy. The Shire does release annual reports that provide the information, and I think the motion goes towards. The Shire holds working groups, stakeholder reference groups, and the Shire also releases media releases, which I just checked on the website as well. So for those reasons, I'm speaking against the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Another speaker for? If not, any speakers against? Councillor Taylor.
Look, in many ways, I'd like to support the motion because there's no doubt we can all improve our communications and understanding of what the Shire does. Had the motion been put differently, it would certainly have my support because I think we can really do better. As I guess many of the councillors would know, my personal view on that scorecard is that so many of the issues were related to issues which are not the responsibility of the Shire, but it's natural for the community to look for somebody to blame or to be held accountable for things that obviously we're not actually accountable for. And I still think as a Shire we can do far better in determining the things and displaying the things that we are accountable for, and clearly ensuring the community understands the things we can't be held accountable for. Other than that, I guess I fully support all of the other comments against this motion, and it's just a shame that it couldn't have been put in a different way, and I could have certainly supported it.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Marmer, do you wish to comment for or against?
No, not really. I just feel a little bit unsteady about the quarterly report. I just feel like it's too frequent, if that. Yeah, I understand the intention behind the new motion. Just the quarterly, I think, is putting a fair bit of work on staff.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Marmer. There's no other speakers for the motion.
Can I not speak? Some
I haven't got there yet, sorry.
Sorry.
I may as well speak against the motion. The community scorecard is one of many measures that the council uses to find out what the community wants and needs. Again, it was only over 1,000 respondents in a community of over 17,000 people. It was also advised to us through the consultants that statewide, a lot of the community scorecards had dropped in some areas. It's a useful tool for us to actually identify the needs around the aspects around the thing, what the community needs, the priorities, and community safety, housing came out on top again as usual. And we also had the safe boat facility. So it's just one of the tools we use. I honestly feel that we do a lot of community consultation through the media, through Facebook, through the newspapers. Myself and the CEO hammering doors in Parliament House, and constantly we have, as mentioned before, numerous workshops, community sessions. It's just one of those things. Unfortunately, you can't get to everybody. We're on radio, we're on Facebook, in the newspaper. So I honestly believe we do a fair bit of community consultation. But as Councillor Taylor alluded to, that we can all do better. We've all got our groups out there that we speak with. And it's also a matter of making sure the community know they can approach the council or the shire outside of council meetings and for information and things like that. It's not a closed shop. So, yeah, I'm voting against the motion. So, Councillor Lewis, you've got to write a reply.
Thank you. I don't dispute that there is a lot of communication from the Shire. I feel that it's probably a bit of a one-way street, though. Every morning when I wake up, there's another Facebook post from the Shire of Broome on my phone straight away, telling me something that I don't need to know at 6 o'clock in the morning. I think it's not about telling the community what's happening. I think the issues were more about listening to what the community says about things and factoring those into decisions. Now, it's all very well to say they don't turn up for consultations, but there must be a reason for that. And sometimes it's because they think there's no point coming because they're not going to listen, the consultant isn't going to report what we said anyway. I think it's a shame, but I think that's what people say to me, why they don't bother to come, because they don't think they'll be listened to. So what I was hoping, I mean, I basically have used Leslie's motion and just tried to make it what Leslie intended it to be. But I agree that I think it's easy to say people have got lots of other things on their mind, but basically of 1,000 people, only 180 people thought that the Shire had a good understanding of what's happening in the community, and even less thought the Shire listened to and respected what the community said. I don't think you can dismiss that as just being, oh, well, they're too busy doing something else. I think it reflects, possibly only in a certain section of the community, quite a deep negativity about the Shire, which, for example, makes it hard to get people to stand for elections when elections come, because they go, oh, you know, what's the point? And I was hoping from what would result from this is that one of our community workshops, briefings, whatever, you know, council agenda briefing thing, no, not agenda briefing, the other one, the workshop, we would actually discuss this a little bit more. I'm not sure, we don't need more Facebook posts or press releases or whatever. What we need is more a discussion about how we can actually listen to the community better, how we can get their feedback. You know, you say, well, nobody responded to Old Broome. 10 people said no, 1 person said yes, 10 people probably turned up tonight. They didn't make it. And that's often what happens. To the people who do turn up are the ones who want to say no, rather than the ones who want to necessarily say yes. And then they get dismissed, and then they get more jaded. So what I would hope that will come out of this, I don't care if it's quarterly reporting or whatever, as long as there is some real discussion about how we make contact with those parts of the community that don't go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings, or, you know, that where the voice is loud and clear coming in, but the groups where the disengaged people are, how we actually try to engage with them better. So that's why I've put this motion.
Thanks. Thank you, councillors. Okay, I'll put the motion from Councillor Lewis to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? Councillor Mahmood, are you for or against the new motion?
Sorry, are you saying the...
the Councillor Lewis's motion. We've got 2 for it, and I haven't put it to. Oh, three for it. Sorry. Well, actually, I'll put it to the
Sorry,
ones.
Mr. President.
Yep.
I had a disconnection there. I was just questioning to clarify whether if you're asking about the alternative motion or not.
Yeah. So we've got 3 for the alternative motion. I'll just put the against and see how many we've got.
Yeah.
So that all those against.
Sorry. Am I still voting? Well, I don't know where we're at. Sorry, I timed out there for a second.
We've got 3 for it and 5 against. So you're either seeing if
for it. Yeah.
Sorry. That's Councillor Lewis's amendment.
No, I'm for the new alternative motion. Yeah.
So 4, 5. So it's.
Just ask again.
Yeah, hang on. Okay, all right. So we've got all those for Councillor Lewis's motion. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 with Councillor Mahmood. All those against. Got 5. Okay, so that motion lapses. So we need a new direction. So I'm happy to move the report recommendation as is. Do we have a second for that? Councillor Taylor, yeah. Okay, original. Okay, so elected motion number 2 is as the report recommendation. So do we have any dissent?
I don't think it makes any sense, the original motion. What are you voting for?
That it's noting the biennial community scorecard information, strategic documentation, and notes the elected motion. That's all it can do.
But the elected motion was to have a quarterly report, but it didn't say what about.
Well, no, the elected motion.
Can it not lapse?
The elected motion as officer's recommendation. Yeah. Yeah, I've moved it, Councillor Taylor. Yeah, so do we need dissent then on this one? If there's no dissent, I'll declare that report recommendation carried. Okay, officer recommendation election motion number 3. Do I have direction from council? Councillor Mauer moving it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Virgo, do we have any dissent? Councillor Lewis, okay. Councillor Mauer.
Thanks, Chair. Look, I'm very interested in doing a feasibility study for a new library. I think it's absolutely vital. I think it's a huge community infrastructure piece. However, there is due process that I believe does need to occur, and currently we have committed, I should say, to doing a mail oval master plan, and as part of that process there will be community consultation which will determine whether the community perhaps would like a library in that area or in Chinatown or the likes. We do have adopted community strategies such as the Old Broome Development Strategy and the Chinatown Development Strategy that undertook significant community consultation to get to the ideas and recommendations of a library in Chinatown somewhere in those documents. And it's not to say that it will go there, because there's obviously still more community consultation that needs to take place. So I think that we need to do that master planning process first to untease the ideas and concepts of where a new library may be well placed.
Thank you, Councillor Mayo. Councillor Virgo.
It's always hard going second with Councillor Mayo. So there goes all my points that I had anyway. No, I'm in agreement. The value of the libraries as an inclusive space and what it is now, it does need to be put into a different area. But I know that there is a lot of planning and has been a lot of planning in place. I believe meaningful community engagement is a major thing during this planning for both the library and the mail over areas. And it's essential to ensure outcomes reflect the broader community vision, which we know basically people want a bigger library. And the Shire needs to be moving into an area as well.
Okay. Councillor Lewis, you wish to speak? Against?
I don't disagree with any of that. I'm just worried that not doing them at the same time is preempting the decision. And if you haven't done the feasibility study, then you don't know what people are thinking of about the size and what will be in the library, so how much room it will take. So I'm not sure how you can do a really good male oval master plan and put a library in when you don't know what the library will look like. So I would much prefer it if they happened at the same time. I'm particularly also concerned about male oval. People tell me that 50 years ago it was a swamp where they used to swim at high tide, and then it was a rubbish tip. And I wonder about the implications of considering building a large building on a site like that anyway, as well as the fact that the water tables may or may not, but is quite likely to rise in future years. And there is already quite a lot of social disruption on that site. Now, we already know the disruption that happens at the library here, where it is currently located, and it has to have a security guard already. So you don't particularly want to pick a site where there's likely to be more disruption. And potentially, if you use the car park for the library, where will the car parking go? So I just think it would be better, excuse me, if the two things happen concurrently, and that a vision for the library, for what the library could be, is developed first, and then you can look and see, will it fit on male oval?
Okay, thank you. Do I have a speaker for the recommendation?
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper.
I note that point 4 of the recommendation is to incorporate a comprehensive community engagement plan. And given that we were just talking about communication and greater communication, I think that's a relevant point to this recommendation. And in the short time that I have been a councillor, I think that in almost every meeting we've been talking about the relocation of the library. And whilst I agree somewhat with Councillor Lewis's comments, we can look broadly and look at what other shires, especially the Shire of East Kimberley, have in relation to a library. And they have a fantastic library, and that is most likely a very good model for what we could have in the future. So I support the motion.
Thank you. Do I have any councillors wish to speak against the motion? No? No. Any councillors wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Mahmood, are you happy with the motion?
I'm happy with it.
Okay. There's no more speakers against. I'll put the right of reply to Councillor Marr. Thanks.
Yeah, look, I acknowledge Councillor Lewis's intent to do a library feasibility to determine what the size of the library is and then therefore the best location. We did adopt a budget just recently, and that budget does have money set aside for the master planning process for Male Oval. Therefore, we are required to do that initially. As part of the annual budget process, we also, and the strategic community plan and business plan, we have opportunities there to try and bring forward the feasibility for the library, which we did discuss, we did talk about. Again, all these things come down to money and staging. So the fact that we have adopted those directions and we have adopted those documents, without going against what we've already adopted, is reason why I'm also supporting the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Marr. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? One. Councillor Mahmood, you're for the motion or against?
Yeah, for.
Okay, so it's carried 8-1. Thank you. Right, moving on. Elected motion number 4. Do I have direction from council?
Clarification, please.
Yep, Councillor Lewis.
Hang on, I've just got to find my page. I asked the question on Tuesday, but I'd like it again in the record. Well, maybe I need to amend it. Too late. I wanted clarification that the consultation for the museum master plan will involve the Dinosaur Coast Management Group about co-location of the exhibits and a research facility.
Clarification. Sorry.
Through the chair, we have developed a community engagement plan for the Broome Museum Master Plan project, and it includes consultation with the Dinosaur Coast Management Group, and during that process they will be asked what facilities they would like ideally in the master plan project.
Thank you. When you told me on Tuesday, you said they were a key stakeholder. Is that still the correct interpretation?
They are listed as a primary stakeholder in our community engagement plan.
Thank you. My second question is just asks about number 3. If we've got a consultant doing the museum master plan, why would the CEO engage with the Dinosaur Coast Group about the museum master plan?
Yeah, everything goes through the CEO, and the CEO will delegate to senior staff.
But is it not in the terms of reference of the consultancy that they're identified as a primary stakeholder, so they will be consulted, won't they?
Apologies through the chair. The way in which typically we word our report recommendation or council motions a table that requests the CEO to do something, whatever that is. In this case, it's worded requesting the CEO to engage with the Dinosaur Coast Management Group. It's the terminology and the wording of how you are trying to have something actioned through the CEO.
Okay. But it means the same thing as what I'm talking about, essentially. Thank you.
Okay. We haven't had we haven't had a mover and a seconder for this report recommendation. Councillor Smith, Councillor Cooper. Any dissent on this item? If not, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Elect motion number 5. Do I have direction from council on this one? Councillor Virgo moving, Councillor Cooper seconding. Do I have any dissent on this item? If not, I'll declare that carried unanimously. Elect motion number 6.
I've got an amendment.
Councillor Lewis. What's your amendment?
Good question. My amendment is that it's on the screen now, so that's even easier. It's 1 and 2 to stay, 3 and 4 to be deleted and exchanged with requests the Chief Executive Officer to action the electors' motion over the next 3 years with reports to council and seniors and the seniors community.
Sorry,
So the original motion had a whole list of things that they wanted done.
number 6.
Through the chair, so Councillor Lewis, are you requesting to amend the elector motion or the officer recommendation?
Which is what's above is the officer recommendation. So I'm wanting to amend the officer's recommendation so that we revert to asking the CEO to implement the elector's motion.
Through the chair, there is just terminology. It's your motion, Councillor Lewis. So Councillor Lewis is moving a motion. It's not an amended motion. It's your motion. So I think that's up on the screen there for everybody's viewing. It's yes, in terms of how you're referencing it, it's slightly different to the report recommendation of staff, but it is your motion as the councillor. So if anybody's unclear, it's on the screen. We can pause for a second and have a quick look. I think there was questions there referring to what the elector motion is. The elector motion is in the agenda item. clearly in full. There's 13 points to that elector motion on page 408.
Chair, I don't want to discount the motion that Councillor Lewis is putting forward. There's just a lot there, and I'm wondering if we might be better off deferring this so that we can discuss in our next council workshop in more detail around the appropriateness of the entire content of the elector motion and putting that forward.
I'd be happy to support a deferral motion on this.
Happy to second that as well.
Yeah, so we haven't got a seconder for your motion, Councillor Lewis, so that lapses. Got an amended, a deferral motion from Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Mayle. So as to deferring it and having a workshop on it. Well, it depends, but we've got two.
No, I won't be here.
It's on the table. Okay. Do we have any?
That's lovely, isn't it? It's actually loves me.
No. You've got a mover and a seconder. So is there any dissent to deferring the motion? That's the question. If there's no dissent. Councillor Smith? Yeah, no, yeah. So councillors, yeah, so we've got... Yeah. All right, so there's no dissent to deferring it, so that item will be deferred.
Council workshop in the first instance.
Yeah, to a council workshop, okay?
Not okay, but
All right. Sorry. Yeah. Put that. There was no dissent, so that was it. It was carried unanimously. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to elector motion number 7.
Chair, I've got an alternative motion that I'd like to put forward.
Councillor Smith. Yep.
Just wait for it to pop up on the screen. That's not it. Oh. You didn't get it? Okay. It was emailed through to CalHelp and Director Watts this afternoon, but I can talk through it. So the alternative motion is that Council notes the elector motion. Number 2, acknowledges the existing memorandum of understanding between the Shire of Broome and Nyambulburi Yaru and the important stakeholder role that Nyambulburi Yaru holds both from an Indigenous cultural perspective and as a significant landholder in the Shire. And 3, requests the CEO establish an Indigenous reference group which is broadly representative of the diversity of the Shire's Indigenous community to support more effective two-way communication and engagement strategies. And the reason that I would like to put this alternative motion forward is that the Shire's community scorecard demonstrated that Broome's Indigenous community are disengaged from the Shire's services, developments and activities, reflected through a consistently lower score from this cohort of the community, And this clearly indicates that the Shire needs to do more to effectively communicate and engage with Indigenous people to ensure their voices are heard and reflected in everything that we do.
Oh, good one. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Lewis. Do I have any speakers against?
Can I just ask clarification? Sorry. So what would be the intent of the advisory group? Is that on projects, or what's the...
In much the same way that we have a youth advisory council, disability access and inclusion reference group, that we would regularly engage with this particular reference group to discuss upcoming matters and issues that are obviously affecting the entire community, but to ensure that we're better engaging with Aboriginal people in the community, given the low engagement and communication and feedback that we currently get from that cohort of the community.
And how often would you envisage that this group would meet?
I think quarterly would be reasonable.
Can I seek a clarification as well? With this group, how would you decide who would be on that group with such a vast amount of people, like different groups in our region?
Mm-hmm.
And then what, you'd be looking at large group, how would you distinguish what the reference of the group would be, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think obviously we could go away and ask the CEO to develop a terms of reference, but my suggestion would be that it would be much like any other reference group. You'd have 10 people put out an expression of interest to the broader community and invite participants. It wouldn't necessarily be, a representative from each community or native title group, but rather a cohort that is broadly representative of the Indigenous community, so that we can get a better perspective on what it is that cohort of the community wants and needs.
Wondering, I would expect NBY to be one of the conduits to a major part of our Indigenous population. This is being too specific in one side. What about all the other members of the community of Broome? All the Filipinos, the Indonesians, the Chinese, the Japanese and all those. Do we have a community consultation group for every single one? We have community consultations already, and everyone's invited.
Sorry, Chair, are you debating, or is this a clarification?
I'm just asking a question. So we have all these community groups. So are you suggesting we've got to have specific groups for everyone, or just one?
I'm suggesting that there is clear evidence from our community scorecard that in the Indigenous representation and the feedback that we're getting from that particular cohort reflects that we need to improve our communications and engagement with that cohort to better enhance and engage them in everything that we do as a Shire.
Okay.
I want to call a point of order, actually. A point of order, Mr. President.
Councillor Mahmood, yep.
The new and the older, the elector's motion didn't mention anything about any other race or any other people. So I just wanted to call a point of order on your question. It's nothing to do with anybody else apart from Indigenous people and those that they engage with, and the Shire, of course. If obviously as a part of the answer, I would provide, if they were to ask for this as well, then that's where the conversation about them would start. It hasn't started yet.
Yeah, it hasn't started yet, yeah. Okay. So we've got a mover and a seconder. Do we have any speakers against? Or further clarification? Councillor Taylor.
Look, I'll speak against it. Obviously, I understand it's a pretty sensitive issue.
Oh.
So,
yeah, sorry, hang on a sec.
Through the chair, just check with the minute taker. I think we've got a mover and a seconder.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any dissent tabled at the moment, so we're not in debate.
I've just asked for so I've just asked for speaking against.
Chair, I get to
Have a
speak
mover,
to the
we have
motion
a
initially.
seconder.
Oh, sorry,
If
yeah.
there's dissent, then you can enter into debate.
That's
To
right, yeah,
clarify
sorry,
if
yeah,
any councillor is
Yeah.
dissenting.
Yeah, that's right. You moved the motion, but you haven't spoken to it. Okay, so, yeah, I've called for speakers against, so yeah, you got the... Yeah.
Sorry, apologies. I haven't got a note here as to which councillor's against the motion at this point, so that you can enter into debate.
Councillor
Thank
Taylor,
you.
yeah. Okay, so now.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
Smith.
So the 2021 census estimated that 26.4% of the Shire's population is Aboriginal. It is widely reported that census completion in Aboriginal households is low, and I think it's reasonable that we could therefore expect that the composition of Aboriginal people in our community could be at least as high as 1/3. Having regularly attended community workshops on various issues myself, whether it be State of the Environment Report, Animal Management Plan, Community Safety Working Group, or indeed the Community Scorecard itself, Aboriginal people are conspicuous in their absence from the room. If we're seeking for our engagement to be reflective of the whole community and the voices of 1/3 of that community is consistently missing from our forums, then I believe we're failing in our duties. According to the Shire's own website, we have a total of 84 Aboriginal communities within the Shire of Broome. There are then also 10 native title claim and determination groups within the Shire. And I contend that the majority of council, myself included, would actually struggle to name those 10, despite the fact that we are supposed to be representing them, and that's quite appalling on my part, and I'm not sure how other councillors would fare in trying to name all of those 10, but the fact is we need to do better. The original recommendation presented in the agenda seems to be satisfied that an MOU that exists with just one of those 10 native titles holders is sufficient in terms of consultation and representation. That somehow an MOU with Nyambaburi Yaru is reflective of the interests of all native title holders and all Aboriginal people, and I just don't think that that's reasonable. We need to establish an Indigenous reference group to ensure we are effectively meeting the needs of everyone in our community, and I propose that the reference group become a cohort of individuals who are broadly representative of the Indigenous community with the intention of better facilitating two-way engagement and communication on a quarterly basis.
Okay, thank you. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Lewis?
Only briefly. I think it's my perception that the Shire's understanding is if they've consulted with MBY, then they've consulted with Aboriginal people, and yet MBY doesn't necessarily even represent all Yaru people, let alone all the other groups that Councillor Smith has described. So I think this is an important initiative to make sure that we actually speak to our population rather than a subgroup of our population.
Okay. Councillor Taylor.
Okay, I guess my view on this is that our role as a council is to represent the community as a whole, and I have concerns that establishing a separate group for a separate entity, which is a broad-based entity which covers the whole strata of the community, is then elevated to have a special reference group. I have concerns with asking for expressions of interest and then having X number of people deemed to be representing the whole of the Indigenous community, which is broad in terms of the number of different groupings there are, the number of people who are advantaged, disadvantaged, and other differences there. And I have concerns that we will be seen to be not having a really representative group of people from that community. As we've said elsewhere, there's always ways we should be improving our communications with the whole community, but bringing in a special reference group based on ethnicity, it just goes against my basic principles. I believe everyone has agency there. Everyone can get involved. And if people do not wish to get involved or do not have the amount of agency, well, that could be applicable to a whole range of people within the community. So I have concerns that it won't be properly representative of Indigenous people in Broome. I also have concerns that it's something based on indigeneity rather than just individuals. Obviously, we have a need to deal with people on specific issues, and we do engage with them, and they're invited to be engaged there. And I also have the view that there are significant able representatives of the Indigenous community that, if they so choose, could represent their people whenever these specific items come before council. So I guess I don't see the need to have a special Indigenous group, reference group, which really doesn't have a specific purpose other than to increase their engagement with the Shire, when that can be done by people with sufficient capacity within that grouping to do that anyway.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith, we've just been advised under point 2, you'd have to delete point 2 as you would have a financial interest.
Sure, happy to delete point 2, thank you.
So is the seconder happy to remove point 2? Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, so do we have any more speakers for the recommendation? Councillor Mahmood, do you wish to speak for it?
Yeah, I'd like to say a few words. In the proposed officer recommendation, there was a few mentions of the Nyambaburu Yaru MOU, and look, a simple question to this matter would be, why do you have an MOU with NBY? And there's a few more points in the paper about the importance of engaging with the local Indigenous community, and NBY, as it's already been said, Nyambaburu Yaru, sorry, is not a sufficient entity to be engaged with.
Yeah, Councillor Mahmood. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Mahmood. We had to remove point 2 of the recommendation due to a financial interest, so we can't actually be specific about NBY in the discussion because it becomes part of a financial interest. So.
Yeah, so I wasn't talking about the alternate motion. I was just touching on the fact that the officers have brought it up, and the fact that exists says that Shire wants to, engage with the Indigenous community, and if you want to do that, well, let's do it right. That organisation can be a part of this group, this advisory / reference group, whatever exactly we're going to call it. And in terms of the membership, they can be one stakeholder, and then there's other stakeholders that speak for Indigenous community, the different parts of the Indigenous community within our district. Mm-hmm. Then, just like any other committee that we have, we can also have, a small handful of community members or Indigenous community members in this case to be a part of this group to ensure that we don't just have corporate representation, but actually have Indigenous community representation. And as a candidate for the 2000, I think it was 19. No, don't quote me, but as a candidate in a previous Shire election, going out to the outer wards, engaging with the outer ward membership, or elect community members. I learned at that point, and it's been known for a very long time, that the Indigenous community within Broome and the old outer ward region, district rather, don't feel that they have had very good engagement with the Shire, even though I know as well that there is a certain level of engagement with the whole community, but it isn't felt out there within the Indigenous community, and giving them a reference group would give them that voice, if you want to call it a voice, which as I'm aware, a lot of people supported in the 2023 referendum from the Kimberley, and in fact, the majority of the Kimberley region had passed that that referendum vote. So, in terms of why this group and why Indigenous people specifically, well, it's what they've been asking for, and in terms of the other organized or races or religions or whatever it is out there, if they ask for it, well, then as a council we can consider it then. But in the meantime, the Indigenous people of our district have been asking for this for a very long time, in my opinion. In terms of the strains and existing resources, well, if we're passionate about something enough, I'm pretty sure we can find the time and resources to commit to this, which I believe is a very important, part of process in terms of our decision making and representation and connection or engagement with our stakeholders or with our community, if you like. The NBY is a representative of a specific group. We need to engage with the Indigenous community, not just one particular part of our Indigenous community. So that I'll leave it as that for now.
Thanks, Councillor Mohammed. Anyone else, any councillor wish to speak against the motion? I might just... I will... Sorry? Okay, I'll let you go first then. Okay, Councillor Mahl.
Sorry, Chair. I'm just struggling a bit with the intent of the group and the outcomes. Like, I understand with the Youth Advisory Reference Group, that was to help prepare a youth advisory plan, as well as the disability access and inclusion plan. So I understand that there was an intent for those groups. I'm just trying to understand the intent here, and without trying to raise financial interest matters, Mr. CEO, I do just want to acknowledge that there has been a process that has taken place, whether we agree with it or not, native title determination here. And as a local government, we have due protocol to go through that avenue to acknowledge the native title holders when we are planning on projects and delivering projects, because it is their determined land. Whether it's right or wrong, it's not for any of us to say, but it is just protocol that we engage with them first and foremost. We've done that with all of our projects, and I'm just, the officer's recommendation of suggesting that we actually go out to local Indigenous organisations to explore with them and ask them what better communication engagement strategies can we use to reach out to their members of those organisations. I think that's a far better approach to get the feedback from them as to what they suggest we can do better than create a group that I'm just not understanding the terms of reference and the directional purpose, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Mahl. Any councillor wish to speak for the motion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councillor Cooper.
A lot of tonight's been about communication, and I think that this reference group will create another form of communication to the Shire. I'm not totally clear on the makeup of how the reference group will be made up. I think there's some work to do there, but I support the motion, and I think that it will have an opportunity for those with less of a voice in community that have come to me recently and in the past to have that voice heard equally.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Anyone wish to speak against it? I will speak against it. And again, I think it's probably around the communication level again. We've had, the Shire has visits to the communities once a year at least, if not twice. We used to try and go south at Tikbidji and north up the peninsula, and we meet with the different communities. The CEO and myself have meetings, telephone meetings with the Aboriginal communities, often with 2 or 3 of them together at the same time, or just individual communities. So we're always trying to work out the best ways of talking with the communities and finding out the issues they face and how we can help. And as such, we go to Canberra and down to Perth and lobby the government about the issues around the communities. I would foreshadow deferring this motion so we could actually look at how we can do it. Establishing a reference group, it doesn't really say how we'd establish it, how many people are going to be on the reference group. I think we have to be better at communicating the discussions we have with the communities already. I've come up with 7 at this stage, Councillor Smith. Yeah, I just think that it's trying to say, let's establish a group. There's no parameters on how you want to establish the group. And honestly believe that if we try and establish a group, we're still going to miss people out in the first place. And as Councillor Taylor has said, we're here to represent the whole community of Broome, not just individuals throughout. And we're more than happy to talk to any of the individual communities or even people coming in and talking to us. I just think this is a difficult situation at the moment to try and establish something like this without actually investigating how we'd do it, how the makeup would be, the costs involved, the resources and things like that. So it needs a lot more work than just saying let's establish a community a reference group without having some sort of guidelines or exactly what you want to achieve out of it. And in the years gone by, we've always had 2 representatives from the outer ward. Now that the government's changed the ward structure, and it's irrelevant really having inner and outer wards because every councillor swears an oath to represent the entire community of Broome, which includes the peninsula right through. So I'm speaking against this motion at the moment. So yeah, anyone wish to speak to the motion again? Councillor.
Can I?
Sorry, Councillor Mahmood, you've spoken. So,
No.
Yep. Councillor Matsumoto.
I mean, my history tells me that setting up a new reference group, sometimes I think, especially with Aboriginal organisations and communities, the reference group, if it does get set up, I think you have to be really mindful about how we engage with those people and what the makeup of that reference group is going to be. Because I've seen reference groups come up and they try to implement things when the rest of the community are not in that mode, and they start nitpicking the representatives there. So, I mean, if we can go to a process where if we agree to set up this reference group, we need to be sure where those reference group people are coming from. But what I'd like to see is like Yamaburu Yarra is the native title holders for this area, all right? And under them, under that organisation, they got a board of directors or committee, board of directors, who deals with all of the issues in regards to native title, but also social and economic development. they deal with it. Now, why can't Yamaburi Yarrow set up a group outside that structure and include the rest of the community as a reference group to them? So you got actually the people that are not in there, and Councillor Smith said there's 10 native title groups in our area, and maybe if Yamaburu agrees that they can come under them to actually deal with the issues that we as councillors can probably solve. I think that's probably the way to do it, because as Councillor Mayo said, that Yamaburu or Yaru is the native title holders here. And if we can work under that, if the reference group can work under them and advise them, and then they can advise the council. I think that's probably the way to do it,
So that was,
rather than picking out.
that's speaking forward. Yeah, okay, thanks, Councillor Matsumoto. That was speaking against or for? I was suggesting a solution, I suppose, but yeah. All right, I think there's been enough debate. Do you wish to sum up, Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, I just want to acknowledge some of the arguments put forward by those that are speaking against the motion, particularly with respect to whether or not it's appropriate to identify a cohort of people, whether it be 10 or whatever that number might be. I'm proposing 10, and whether that cohort is adequately representative of the broader Indigenous community. We have called expressions of interest for community members on the Cable Beach Stakeholder Reference Group, for example, and that is 2 members to represent 100% of the community. I'm asking for 10 people to represent 30% of the community. I also acknowledge that there is some concern around what the group might actually do and what the terms of reference might be. For too long, Guttiers, white people, and I acknowledge the irony in the fact that I'm arguing this case being a white person myself, have been dictating to Aboriginal people how they should be communicated with, how they should be engaged with, and what's right for them. I'm suggesting that we undertake an expression of interest and allow Aboriginal people to tell us what they want. They should have the freedom to establish a terms of reference and identify how they can best feed into the actions and activities that the Shire of Broome conducts. So with that being said, I really think that we do have the opportunity to better engage and communicate with what is a large and significant portion of our population, however, remain marginalised within our community. And I think that marginalisation is reflected in the evidence of the Shire's own community scorecard and the feedback that we get through that piece. I implore my fellow councillors to take an alternative approach, to try something different and try a new way in which we engage with Aboriginal people in our community and support the establishment of an Indigenous reference group.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. All right. Clarification to the CEO. How do you envisage, if this motion gets through, how do you envisage setting up or trying to establish a reference group?
How do I envisage we progress it?
Yeah.
I think we would need to draft a terms of reference to begin with and workshop through that through council and confirm the approach that's been espoused tonight.
Okay, thanks. All right. I'll put the report recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Mahmood?
Yep.
Okay, all those against? So it's 4. So it's carried 5-4. So thank you. Okay, moving on. That was recommendation up to recommendation elected motion 8. Do I have direction from council? I'm
Happy to move the officer's recommendation. I just have a clarification through the CEO. I understand the urban renewal strategy we're fighting for every 5 minutes, and it's not an adopted strategy of council for various reasons. However, there has been a lot of questions on this item. Is a member of public able to request a copy of that document? Like, I know we're suggesting it can't go on our website because it's not an adopted document, but if someone wanted to see that document, are they able to obtain it?
Look, through the chair, they would most certainly can make a request through the Department of Communities. It's not
So they couldn't get it through us,
well,
the copy
it's
that
not a Shire document,
Okay.
which is why it's not on the website, unfortunately. There was a huge body of work done, as you're aware, but it was never formally tabled with council or considered for adoption.
A further clarification, is it not available even in draft form in the library?
Through the chair, not to my knowledge.
So Councillor Mayall's moved that. I'm happy to second the recommendation. Do I have any speakers against the recommendation? Left dissent? If not, declare that one carried. Thank you. Report recommendation, election motion number 9. Do I have direction from council? Councillor Lewis moving it, seconded Councillor Virgo. Any dissent? I declare that one carried. Elector motion number 10. I'm happy to, hang on. Yeah, I'm happy to move that motion. Report recommendation, Councillor Smith. Any dissent on that one? If not, carried unanimously. Recommendation, elector motion 11.
A clarification on that? Is it only that the school that can approach the Shire? It couldn't be the P&C or a group of parents or somebody that could approach the Shire?
I think this is one in relation to funding.
For covered courts?
Yeah, well, it is a Department of Education issue, but P&C is going to apply for grant funding and various others, but cool.
Look, through the chair, the officer comment is there on page 414. I think that stands. It's the Department of Education. It's Department of Education infrastructure.
And no, that's
clarification.
Councillor Taylor.
It would surely be inappropriate for us to advocate on behalf of an individual rather than the school. So there should be an approach from the school first, as per the officer's recommendation, shouldn't it?
Through the chair, that's the officer's view, 100%. Yep.
My question was, does it have to be the school that approaches the Shire, or it can't be the P&C or a group of parents? They're wanting, it's only for advocacy, so it's for a letter of support or something like that.
Look, through the chair, I mean, the elector's motion is there requesting the Shire do the advocacy. Our response at officer level is suggesting that the school can do that, but yes, there are others that can approach the Department of Education and advocate outside of the school and the Shire.
Okay, so do we have has that got a mover and a seconder? No. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm happy to move that report. Councillor Taylor, second. Councillor Mayall, if you wish to question. Okay. All right. Okay. Any dissent on this one? If not, carried unanimously. Thank you. Elector motion number 12.
I've got an amendment to that.
Councillor Lewis. What's your amendment? Thanks.
To delete the last part of number 2, which says through the review of the State of the Environment Report and Environmental Management Plan. So the first bit stands, gives consideration to a current creation of a significant tree register, full stop.
Yeah. Okay, do we have a seconder for that report recommendation?
Can I get a clarification, please, Chair? Can I just confirm that we have previously had a significant tree register and the reason why we moved away from that process?
Director?
Yeah, through the chair. I've looked actually today trying to find when the policy was revoked. My general understanding of it, I'll have to keep searching for when that policy was revoked. It was somewhere post 2016. State of Environment Report was done in 2015, and it seems to be some stuff happening in 2016, and we still had delegations for the significant tree register to officers around 2016-17, but I haven't been able to find the agenda item before tonight about why it was revoked. My general understanding of it is that it wasn't just wasn't enforceable. You need to have a proper process through the planning framework and local laws and things like that to give it the robustness that it needs. So to do it, to have a significant tree register that's actually of value and you can use it in, and it can guide you and you can use it for enforcement should you have to, it needs to be tied up with the planning stuff and with local laws, and we didn't have that. So with this recommendation, if we do go ahead and do it, we can do it properly. I'm not sure how long it would take and what would be involved. Creating local laws and things take a bit of time. What we had before was, it gave consideration to it, but I think I believe if someone went and cut down a tree, it was just tree gone. So it was really just a notion. It wasn't actually anything substantial. Thanks.
Can I clarify then with Kirsten that there is provision in the planning legislation for a significant tree register, and I understand if once a tree is on that register, that if a development application comes in for something on private land where there is a significant tree, then consideration has to be given to that. So is that correct?
Thanks, Kirsten.
No, it's on. Oh, it was.
Oh.
Councillor Lewis, yes, you can do it through your planning scheme, but you have to amend your scheme to be able to do it. So basically, there are some councils in the Perth metropolitan region who have done it. I think off the top of my head, it's Bayswater and potentially one of the other inner city councils. But in essence, you have to amend your scheme, the supplementary provisions, to give rise to be able to have a significant tree register, and then what that triggers, if you ever want to prune it, trim it, so on and so forth, you need to get development approval to do it. That's the provision.
So given that it was in the 2016 Environmental Management Plan that came out of the environmental review as a recommendation to do that, but why wasn't it considered in this planning things for Old Broome and Cable Beach that we've been going through?
So the current state of the environment report, my understanding of it is it didn't actually have that as an action. It does mention that we did have a significant tree register, which we did at the time, but as Jeremy just pointed out, it meant nothing because there were no actual statutory controls in place, either by way of a scheme provision or a local law to actually give effect to the significant tree register. In essence, it was just a document. If someone went and knocked that tree down, there is no controls that we can take to actually implement or take action against that landowner for something that they've done. We can consider it through the development assessment process, but once we've issued a development approval, again, if it gets knocked down, there is no controls to go and prosecute or take action against that owner.
My understanding is slightly different in that it was in the environmental management plan that was at the back of the 2015 review to create a significant tree register. So it didn't happen in the formal sense, obviously.
It's listed there in the agenda item that we did have a policy at the time, and it was revoked in December 2017. I'm sure at the time the State Environment Report was done before that, if I recall correctly. So the State Environment Report, to my knowledge, doesn't have it as a reference. I haven't reviewed it recently. It references it in there, but I don't think it has an action specifically because it was developed at the time. Again, there's that many informing strategies, I don't know it off the top of my head.
I believe it's there because I read it.
Okay, thanks, councillor. Thanks, Kirsten. So we've got you're moving the amendment. Do we have a seconder to the report?
Councillor Lewis, I was just wondering if we might be able to amend your alternate motion. Perhaps point 2 could be undertake an initial census of trees across Broome with a view to reviewing our local laws and implementing appropriate protections of trees.
If that was stuck up, would that turn into anything useful?
Are you able to comment on that?
Sorry, I was just looking at something. I missed what you said, Ellen. Sorry. Councillor Smith.
I'm just wondering if we could reframe the alternate motion to undertake an initial census of trees across Broome with a view to reviewing local laws and inserting the relevant protections into the local laws.
My understanding is you have to do it through a planning scheme amendment.
Yep.
That's how some councils have done it. There's only been a few. I think when I checked last, there was about 3 that had done it. And then you go through the process of calling expressions of interest. People nominate those trees on the significant tree register. So it's a fairly involved process, and it would take time to amend the scheme to incorporate something like that.
Okay, so instead of reviewing the local law, we could say review the relevant scheme.
And am I correct, Kirsten, that there is definition of what a significant tree is as well in the planning regulations? So it's not up to us to, make personal judgments. There's a definition.
Most councils, again, that do have it, have a policy that set out how someone can nominate a tree for that, and it usually requires an arborist report and other qualifications. But yes, it would be the Shire making the call on whether that tree is significant.
But there's rules about the size and the density, whatever. I read them somewhere.
It would depend upon the policy framework that you'd put in place in relation to that.
Right. So we need some final wording of section 2.
Clarify your amendment on that, so the wording.
So, Councillor Lewis, I'm wondering, I feel like we need a bit more thought into this. I'm wondering if we defer it.
Till next meeting?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Who?
Would you like to second it?
And then you'll be away. Yes, let's do it.
I'll be at the meeting.
So you're withdrawing your motion and deferring the item?
Well, yes, it wasn't mine. I suppose it wasn't my motion, was it? It was my amendment. Let's defer the item.
Okay, so your recommendation is, elected motion 12 is to defer the motion or defer the item until...
Significant tree register, that's historic. You can watch it for culturally important trees on private. So that's just a frame.
Yep. Okay. So your motion is just defer the item? Yes. Okay. Till the next council meeting, I presume, or did you want to put a time on it?
With a view to workshopping at our next council workshop, what an appropriate course of action might be.
Okay. All right. So you've got a mover and a seconder. Any dissent on that item? If not, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 9.4.2. Minutes and recommendations from the Kimberley Zone and Kimberley Regional Group meeting held 21 February. Do I have a direction from council? I'm happy to move the report recommendation. Do I have seconded? Councillor Smith, any dissent? If not, it's carried. Thank you. Item 9.43 under performance, monthly payment listing February 25, page 572. Do I have direction from council? So move Councillor Virgo, seconded Councillor Cooper. Any dissent? If not, declared carried. 9.4.4 monthly financial report January 25, page 592. Councillor Smith moving, seconded Councillor Virgo. Any dissent on this item? If not, carried. Item 9.4.5 under performance, monthly financial report February 2025, page 620. Do I have a mover? Councillor Virgo, Councillor Cooper, seconded. Any dissent on this item? No. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 10, reports of committees. There are none. Item 11, notice of motion with notice. There is none. Item 12, notice of motion without notice. None. Item 13, business of an urgent nature. There is none. No. Item 14, meeting closed to public. There are no confidential items. And item 15, there being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 7:34 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.